you tired of the typical libraries with conventional music that makes you feel meh? Introducing Leerecs.com, the music website made for and by minds like you. Our team are lifelong musicians and producers in love with music. Search the Leerecs music catalogs and find music with guaranteed originality. Mark the difference with music of signature at Leerecs.com.
What about this incredible intro? These are fantastic musicians playing here. This is the band Belly the Tiger. This is Human Vessel. That's the song. That's the song title. Look at this. Hear these fantastic vocals. Love it. Change on tempo. That's fantastic. We have the whole band with us today. So we have Dwayne, drummer that I've been speaking with, and we have the rest of the band too. Hi Dwayne, hi everybody.
I'm fantastic. Hello. Hello. Hi Antoine.
Hi, fantastic. So all right, let's see if I got it correct. So Dwayne is the drummer, Andrew bassist, Michael guitars and keyboards, and Danny is vocalist, fantastic vocals. Although, well, everybody is really, really good. So, hey, why don't you take the floor, talk to us, tell us a little bit about this project, your band, Belly the Tiger.
So yeah, this is Dwayne. We kind of a collection of longtime acquaintances and co-workers in the day job world. Danny and I worked together. For a number of years, and I had actually been retired from playing for a while, and Danny had this prog project come up and asked me if I wanted to play, and I had heard some of the demos and thought, yeah, this would be a good way to get back into playing again, and we've been doing it ever since. That was about 4 years ago. We
4 years.
We were together. Yeah. It was February 2019, I think, is when we started. First started playing together. And Michael has a studio in his home, and this is where we rehearse weekly, typically. And we have recorded all of our album from 2022 or 2021, excuse me, Lost, as it was called, and then the new EP, which was just released a couple of months ago.
It started out, this is Michael, the guitarist, keyboard player. I'm an old friend, me and Danny are old friends, the vocalist, and he called me a few years ago to do like a prog album. And it started off just as sort of a project. And by the time Dwayne came on the scene, we started to kind of decide to build the band and put out a recording and then begin to play live. But there was a long time when we were recording where I didn't actually think we were going to be a band that was going to perform live. And so I made different aesthetic choices at that time than I'm making now for the music and orchestration. But it's progressed quite wonderfully.
All right, so I see how the synergies have worked together to bring you, like, based on admiration, I would say. So what I hear from what you're telling me, I know this person to be a very, very good musician, or I heard the demos and they were really, attractive for me. And you can tell that I can tell it, as a person dedicated to music for a long time. You get to a point that you want to keep your level or improve your level. Is this that kind of situation? Have you gotten before this a lot of offers to play in other projects, and maybe this is what really call you based on, like musicianship, let's say?
Yeah. I mean, I if I understand your question correctly, I believe so. This is progressive rock and is a labor of love for myself, and it's a passion and almost a compulsion, really. And having a band like this to kind of focus myself and kind of focus my energy as a writer and kind of quasi composer has been very, very important. And every release and every time we do something in the next song we write, I'm always trying to kind of push the boundaries and our own limitations. Before this interview, I was just commenting and working with the guys on basically new investments in the studio to kind of push those technological boundaries, so our next round of recordings sound even more modern and professional, and sonically pleasing and interesting, and trying to constantly push those boundaries.
I think it's a little different for all of us, but for me, it's a lifelong pursuit, and I wasn't playing for a few years there, but I was still listening to new music and learning new things about music. And when I came back to playing again, my hands maybe weren't quite there right off the bat, but I still feel like I was a better musician than I had been when I had stopped playing, a number of years before. So that never really stops, no matter what project I'm involved in. It's not, it's more than just getting together in the garage and making some noise, for sure. I'm pretty serious about music. I have been for a long time. Michael and I both have college degrees in music. I worked as a full-time freelance musician in Chicago for a number of years. Did a lot of jazz playing, a lot of other things. Original rock was not among those things, though, so this has been a new experience for me, and there's been, growth out of it just because of that, because this is just not the type of project I would have been involved in years ago when I was making a full-time living playing music.
I really like the eclectic background of all the members is really important, because it makes that final product. It's a challenge to make it cohesive, but I think it's much easier to get much more depth out of that, to have multifaceted individuals from various backgrounds. Mm-hmm. Andrew here, has a death metal project that he does on the side. And I actually really love that about that, because it's a different aesthetic, and especially as a bass player, bringing that sensibility into something that's a little bit more delicate, and maybe traditional in some sense, in some aesthetic regard. It's kind of fascinating to me, and I really like having those sort of multifaceted voices, rather than having someone much more similar to myself or a very similar background.
Things end up sounding the same.
Yeah, exactly. Or predictable within a.
I don't want to be predictable.
I don't want to be predictable either. Yeah.
From a vocalist point of view, this has been a unique and challenging project. This is the first band in my adult life where I don't have an instrument in my hands. Very challenging indeed. I love my heroes, everything I grew up with, all the prog bands I grew up with. I'm also a big fan of pop music, and man, I will take from any good melody and see if there's a way to make that stick in some of the stuff we do, and that's a challenge. It's a challenge, but wow, I like the results when it's done. Human Vessel was that one of them? Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember where I won't say that for legal reasons.
Danny takes a lot from some of the female singers of the 90s.
A lot of them.
That influence on Human Vessel, if I recall correctly, in the Coda section. Yeah.
I feel her breathing a lot. Just a phrasing.
Yeah. Okay, so talking about influences, can you mention, some of the influences that have taken a part into the song or your sound in general? Some preferences that you admire, or you're trying to inspire you.
That's a tough question, because it really runs the gamut. When we were we were, Dwayne's got a very good pair of ears here for tuning studio spaces and speakers. And we tried out some really crazy eclectic music through the system to make sure it was balanced. Everything from, Rush to Dead Can Dance to Joni Mitchell to some, South American jazz artists.
Milton Nascimento, Kubedaski, that's a real kind of important record for a few of us.
Yeah. And so just a very eclectic background, and of course the prog rock sort of history, of King Crimson in Kansas. Dane is a huge Kansas fan. And that pops up in our music quite a bit.
Yeah. We all most of us cut our teeth on Led Zeppelin, and that's Deep Purple. This great rock music of the 60s and 70s. In particular, but I'm also a big jazz head, 20th century classical music. Human Vessel, I just wrote a post up on our Facebook page this morning on Human Vessel and the tempo devices that we're using. We changed tempos a few times, and some people have commented that the changes sounded random to them, but they're anything but. They're actually very carefully calibrated metric modulations where the tempos have a very specific relationship to one another.
Oh yeah. So can you
ran to a click now? Everything's to a click.
So can you dive a little bit more into what's behind the particular change on tempo? That was one of the things that I really liked about this song. So is there anything that you can say that inspired the tempo, the particular tempo changes?
So the device is called metric modulation, and it's something I've been fiddling with for a long time. Actually, a lot of the jazz music I was writing back in the 90s and early 2000s employed that device. One of my favorite 20th century composers, Elliott Carter, kind of pioneered the codification of it back in the 1940s. And it's kind of permeated to the jazz world from there, and has kind of become more and more visible in the rock world too. In the post I wrote on social media this morning, I mentioned a band called Mastodon and a minor hit they had a few years ago called Oblivion, and that employs the same metric modulation device in really kind of slick ways. But there's a lot of people doing it at this point in time. I was actually thinking it might be fun to kind of collect an example of songs that do this, and there's a million ways to do it. They don't sound the same at all, but what's common between them is that you're moving in one meter and then you kind of morph into this other meter, and before you know it, suddenly you're in this different tempo, different feel, and you got there smoothly, but it takes some parsing. In fact, when I wrote out the explanation for the post, it took me a few hours to backtrack and remember what exactly I had done and figure out what the relationships were. But once I checked them, it's like, yep, that's what it is. So
awesome. So yeah, let's. I will find that post. I'm really interested in it. Anybody who can, who's curious about it can reference that. I also very much liked the guitar lick at the beginning. It's very captivating. How, I would want to ask Michael, I suppose that this is your work. How did you arrive to these, this enchanting type of guitar lick?
Well, I play with my fingers. I use a thumb pick that I've sculpted myself out of using files and everything, so it fits on my finger and I can hold it almost like a traditional pick, but I actually am constantly finger picking because I'm classically trained. I have a degree in classical guitar that I got years ago, and I like the way my kind of fingers play on an instrument with distortion, and I like the way that feels. And I'm not the only one who plays this way. Richard Fortus is another great player. Richie Kotzen's another great player who plays with his fingers. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I'm a big fan of those guys. That
they all got it from Jeff Beck.
We all got it from Jeff Beck.
We're bigger than Jeff.
Yeah, we're just a bunch of Jeff Beck ripoffs.
Yeah, y'all are. All y'all.
But I employed that sort of that meter idea of like the 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 dot 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 dot, and it's basically just like a nice little arpeggio figure over top of that rhythmic figure, and then trying to come up with like a nice use of effects and tone to create a nice sort of landscape of sound. And like I alluded to earlier, when we were doing the first record, I wasn't sure we were going to be a band and play out, and so I wasn't thinking about how I was going to perform anything live. And with the EP, I was much more conscientious that things,
the newer stuff's moving in that direction.
Yeah, that things were a little bit more stripped down and performative. And performable. Yeah. Performable.
You only need 5 guys instead of 10.
Yeah, to do it. And so I was much more aware of that. So I was trying to come up with guitar parts that I wouldn't need a lot of parts to kind of fill up the space. I was trying to come up with parts that by just playing it and playing it well would fill up its own space, and I wouldn't have to put any overdubs on it or anything like that. So I'm pretty happy with Human Vessel because there really isn't any. There's an acoustic bed track just to kind of help the background glue together a little bit, and other than that, there's just that guitar part on top of it, and there's no other overdubs whatsoever on there.
No, I think you're right. It's really, really fulfilling, and it goes great with the atmosphere that the rest of the instrumentation is creating at the time. So I'm conscious about your time, and I want to be mindful, but I have many questions. Maybe this is not the last time. Hopefully not the last time we talk. I would like to ask Danny who wrote the lyrics. I hope Danny was it you who wrote the lyrics?
No, most of these lyrics, Michael writes poetry.
Incredible.
Boxes and boxes full of poetry, and I get a hold of them. I'll go through a box and go, "Oh, what is this gem right here?" And I'm probably, 4 or 5 of the ones we've done on the record and the EP are just something I picked out of the box and went like, "Oh, Michael, it goes like this," and I'll sing him a melody.
Yeah.
And then it's making poetry into a song, so it gets changed quite a bit from the original poem. But there's only 5, 6 of them that started like that.
It's a back and forth shaping process, and I like working with Danny because I can handle a stack of stuff that doesn't go together. And pull out lines and just kind of we stick it together and kind of glue it together that way at times too. Sometimes I hand him stuff that's kind of 90% there.
Those are nice.
And then I listen to him kind of sing through it, and then I'll go back and I'll do another editing stage and shaping stage, and we go back and forth in that type of communication. And it becomes a group effort after a while.
It really is.
So I'm happy to sort of have it be stated as such. But I try to walk in and have a lot of raw materials ready to be bandied about by everybody and kind of build stuff up that way, if that makes any sense.
It does, and it actually, it's very commendable, the great synergy and dynamics that we can hear, anybody can hear from you talking amongst yourselves, and the, check your ego at the door type of attitude, to be able to hey, this is great, I'm gonna use it, this is fantastic. I love that. That really projects the professionalism and how good of musicians, experienced musicians that are in this band. Very admirable, I gotta tell you. The last question, almost last, but I don't want to leave out Andrew, and my question would be, how do you find your space when there's so much going on, so much quality? How do you find your space as a bassist to leave your mark, to get your firm notice?
Well, I'd say like I try to play bass in a sort of a way that's influenced by all the different types of music that I listen to, in a way that fits in with this band as well. So I'm really big on variations, like not playing the same line exactly the same twice, even if I played it a particular way on the recording. sometimes I'll switch it up a little bit live, or I'll allow it to continue to evolve. If I feel like there's a new idea that's going to fit better than my initial one, I like to let those changes come in and take over if they work out. And also, I would say like writing bass lines to Michael's guitar parts is really interesting sometimes, because there's like several notes that you could choose as the root note, or not the root note, but like a good bass note, you know. And just being able to walk around between them is really nice.
Yeah, there's the bass player. Andrew has a lot of power, and he's really good about exercising it and using it in a very delicate, considerate way. You'd be shocked that when we're writing and producing and recording, we don't really have to talk to each other a lot. It's just we just kind of like set everything up and roll it a few times, and then after a few repetitions, everybody's kind of got a pretty strong idea of what's happening, and then after that, it's just a couple details that we end up kind of bashing into shape.
Everyone's just trying to bring to the music what the music calls for, and once you see what's there and what the essence of it is, it I don't want to say it writes itself, but sometimes it feels that way, and the chemistry's good enough in the band, and everyone's a strong enough player. Everyone can just kind of play the way they want to, and it pretty much works. So
I gather that from our conversation. I can tell, I believe me, I got the picture of the level in this band is tremendous, and I can see that. I imagine those practices going smoothly, and the writing process as well. And you got great energy amongst yourselves. It's visible. It's very evident. I commend you to continue, and I want to thank you for your time. This is Human Vessel by Belly the Tiger. Hopefully, we'll talk again.
Please. We hope so.
Wonderful. Hey, man. Anytime.
Thank you.
Looking forward.
Okay, so all the best, and we're going to enjoy a little bit more of Human Vessel by Belly the Tiger.
Tired of the typical libraries with conventional music that makes you feel meh? Introducing Leerecs.com, the music website made for and by minds like you. Our team are lifelong musicians and producers in love with music. Search the Leerecs music catalogs and find music with guaranteed originality. Mark the difference with music of signature at Leerecs.com.